Good afternoon. I am David Sangree, President of Hotel and Leisure Advisors. Welcome to our interview series where we sit down and chat with owners and operators of major water park properties across the United States to discuss how these properties are gearing up for 2021 season and how they have been adjusting to the disruption from the pandemic. Today, I'll be talking with Jim Kunau with Island H2O near Orlando, Florida. We've had a chance to visit Island H2O, and we've also prepared an appraisal of the property, so I'm very familiar with it. But Jim, maybe we just start off with telling us about when you guys are opening for this season.
Well, we'll open to the public on March 13th. We're doing a season pass holder event on the night of the 12th from 5 to 9. Kind of gives them a little bit of a preview and lets them process passes and just that little bit of extra time for those people that are going to visit us a lot.
Okay. So since your property is quite new, and of course you did host, I think you hosted the WWA there last year, or when we last were in person. But not everybody who's listening to this interview series has been to your property. Maybe just briefly describe, the highlights of your property.
Well, so I'm an old marketing guy, but I have to tell you, we are the most technologically advanced water park in the world. And I can say that and back it up a lot. Well, 16.9 acres. We're the newest water park in the Orlando market. We have a wristband program that interfaces to Vantage technology, which we use throughout the park. Now, what makes us different is that we've created a loyalty program that as you ride the rides, you gain points and you can get something. If you're an aggressive rider on your first day, you can get an ice cream cone. So it's pretty simple. But when I say most advanced in the world, there are things like when you tag into a ride, it initiates the safety protocols. We believe that we can reduce the number of in-slide collisions, for example. So there are safety aspects as well that are behind the scenes, as well as the consumer aspect of the loyalty point program. But there are all kinds of other things. From a tech standpoint, every ride we have in the park, except for our two children's areas, has some technological feature. The wave pool's got a 22 by 44 foot video screen. We can do dive-in movies in the middle of the day. We don't have to wait till night. If you go down the racer slide, you can see who won. When you take our capsule drop slides, we record you as you're getting that last 3, 2, 1, and you watch the face drop off. There are rides that you can control the lights and sounds from turning them all the way off to playing your favorite style of music. If you're an 80s hair band guy, pick up the 80s station. And so all of those things have to do with the technology that we've incorporated, but it'll go even further. You can find your friends in the park. It's a passive RFID. We can tell you where you've been, but we've got a lot of readers in the park, so we can get you pretty daggone close. As we get into the next edition, we will have a safety feature where you can mark island, and the two children's areas are on the island. And if your child slides off the island, it can send a notification to your phone saying, little Tommy left by bridge 2. So those are things that really make a huge difference when I say, and I won't say that we're the first people to do everything. We're the first people to put them all in one location and integrate them all into a program that really provides a level of service. And at the end of the day, nobody's coming to the park because you're technologically advanced. They're coming to have fun. But the tech adds an element that brings your neighborhood to us, because one of the other things it does is it sends your pictures to an app and you get to distribute where you want them to go so that your neighborhood becomes our neighborhood. And that's one of the real values that we see, is that even if you come to the park without all your friends from Canada, you can include them in what you're doing. We have selfie stations. We also have Be Live booths where you can record video messages. And so it's a different aspect than you've ever seen the use of tech in a park.
Yeah, so let's just talk about, you've given all positives on the tech, but, ever since you guys have proposed this, I've wondered to myself, sometimes technology is not perfect. And there is challenges for the staff to figure out how to use it, or for the customers to figure out how to use it. How has it actually been implementing it? What are some of the pluses and minuses of all of these technology components?
Well, one of the first things is that, you actually have to wear the wristband.
Okay.
And there are people that don't want to because they don't see the need. It's a safety feature. You've got to wear the wristband, and you can't go down a slide without one. So that's some people may find that's a problem. It interferes with tan lines.
Yeah.
Not a big problem for us because that's a safety feature, and we profess safety first. Well, this is a first level backup of that. The second portion is that if you don't want to collect your points, you don't have to. You can integrate with the app, but it's not required to ride the rides. The wristband is, but the app certainly isn't. Now, downloading the app, those kind of things take a little bit of time. But if you're an annual pass holder, after you do it the first time, you walk in, show them your card, they scan it, they scan the wristband, they put it on, and you're done for the day. So I will say that the benefits far outweigh the issues and concerns. But if you don't want to use those loyalty points, it's not a requirement.
But let's just think about from the staff point of view. So managing the rewards and managing all of the, you must have, thousands of people using this. Has there been any challenges, or has it just worked so well that there isn't any problem?
Well, I'm going to tell you anything that I will say we're one big, large beta site, right?
You really are.
And yeah, there are challenges in training. There are challenges in making sure the technology works. That's routine, but you don't improve upon normal systems without working your way through those. This year, when we opened the season, I'm calling it Vantage 2.0, and we've worked our way through some of the smaller issues that we've had. But in 2.0, we're taking a big leap in addressing those issues. So it's there's trade-offs for everything. To me, it's a small trade-off for what you get when it works, and when it works well. And we've reached that point where I will tell you it works well.
That's great. Well, let's just talk about how did the pandemic affect your 2020 operating season? Just tell us about how many days you were open. If you can tell us about your attendance levels, or how they might have changed your sales levels, and what during the pandemic, what did customers like to do?
So the pandemic, when the President Trump came out and said, we have a pandemic and we need people to react now, that afternoon, ownership called and asked me to shut the park down right away. So instead of closing at 6 o'clock, we closed at 5 o'clock on March 16th. We were shut down for 9 weeks and didn't reopen until May 22nd. And that was a long period because you have to look at your employees and go, there's not any work at the moment.
Right.
And we wheeled down our staff and we got everybody up. It is, to my knowledge, we were the first water park in the U.S. to reopen. I think there were 3 water parks that reopened on the same day we did. And frankly, from when the governor of Florida said we could open, it took us an extra 7 days to get open from that time period, because you still have to recertify your guards. You still have to rehire all those bodies, process them, get them in, run through what the new COVID measures. I've got an 18-page document on the new safety procedures that are guest facing and employee facing. So there was a whole new set of training that we had to do. Attendance came back strong. I believe that we probably are one of the few parks that saw an increase in attendance over prior year. Now, remember, we didn't open until June 21st the prior year.
Right.
So, but with those days that we were shut, we wound up exceeding greatly. What we also found was, because we limited the number of people in park per social distancing requirements from the CDC and from the government, that enabled us to eliminate a lot of price points. So ticket per capitas were higher than expected. In-park spend was higher than expected. I have to say, for those facilities that have a bar, whether it's beer, wine, and alcohol, we all saw an increase at those particular locations. But every retail location in the park saw an increase in per capita.
Right.
I don't know if it's the people that were coming were bored and suddenly had money set aside, or whether it was, we're here, we're going to have fun, and this is our entertainment. Because for most people, large vacations were canceled. Things were changing. We became a drive market only. So, I mean, when you take a look at it, our guests didn't spread out quite nearly as far as they did on a smaller attendance level in 2019.
Right.
Did I answer all your questions? I didn't know if you want to go any further. I can certainly talk a little bit more.
No, I think that's good. I mean, it actually, the year ended up better for you than some might have expected. But of course, your previous year was only a partial year, and you were just trying to they were trying to let people know that you existed. So it's nice that you were able to come back better despite the pandemic. So for 2021, which I think a lot of our audience might be interested in, what are there any facility improvements or renovations that you are forecasting? And is the pandemic causing you to make any renovations or expansions that you could identify?
Well, so in order to do things in the pandemic, obviously, disinfection and sanitization became much bigger issues. Quite frankly, not knowing what to do with the capsule slides and not having a season or having anyone else operating before we opened, we shut our capsule slides down for the entire season. And in talking to other parks this year, we will open the capsule rides. But we took those two people and they became part of the new sanitation team and sanitation rotation. Every life vest that's used in the wave pool or the lazy river has to be sanitized before you can hand it to the next person. Every tube, every mat has to be sprayed down and wiped down. And there's a variety of cleaning products out there. So there were a couple that were 15 seconds. There are a couple that are 1 minute. There's several that are 10 minutes, depending on what area of the park and what access you needed to have. We had to have 3 different cleaners and sanitizers to be able to effectively do that. But we also had to add a level of employees on that we didn't have previously to achieve sanitation levels, to wipe down handles. That's not changing. While I'm going to open our capsule slides this year, we're not changing that sanitation process.
Okay.
We eliminated tubes in the lazy river. The tubes in the lazy river were a guest concern because they enjoy tubes in the lazy river, but how do you social distance? At the end of the year, we added them back in to see, and we watched what other people were doing. So will we reduce the number of tubes that we previously had? But tubes will be back in the lazy river and in the wave pool this year. But there's still capacity issues that we've reduced the capacity of all of the pools to accommodate what we believe is social distancing. And so that's those are things that are not going to change in the 2021 season. And none of those really have a capital impact. we're doing some retail and food and beverage expansion. Being a new park, it's like, okay, where are the holes? Where do you need things? You start off with a concept and a plan, and you come back and you redo it. We're expanding our merchandise area at the front gate to a large degree. That's happening. We shifted the location of a Dippin' Dots cart. We're adding a satellite bar. Those are all things that we think will give better guest services because it makes them easier. And at the end of the day, it will also have a return on investment. We're adding snow cones this year. So those are things that we're doing. We've refined our menus, trimmed back a little bit, expanded a little bit. Funnel cakes are still here, and so's lemonade.
So you're not really, it doesn't sound like, because the park is so new, you are not adding any new rides this year, but it's mostly operational and the food and beverage and retail changes.
Yeah, no marketable new capital is what we call it.
Okay.
And yet, if you look at it, we opened June 21st of 2019. That's not a full year, and it certainly doesn't get you that pre-Memorial Day push. Last year with the pandemic, we were closed for a huge section for 9 weeks that we were supposed to be open daily. We were closed to the public. Really, this is almost like our coming out year that we're able to be open from spring break here in Florida. We'll operate for 4 weeks, 3 weeks continuously. Then we'll go to a 4-day week in the rest of April. And then Memorial Day, we open daily and run daily all the way through Labor Day. Okay. But the park will remain open. We do weekends all the way till Thanksgiving, and we're open from the Saturday prior to Thanksgiving all the way through the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So we have a long season, and yet this really is the first year that we're going to have an entire season. So we're thrilled. This is going to be fun.
Right. Now, maybe, and I'm not sure if all the listeners to our webinar would realize that you guys are connected to the Margaritaville Resort. Just tell us about how that connection is working, what percentage of their guests are actually using the park, and or do you expect to use the park? And also, do they all pay a fee, or do they get to use it complimentary?
Well, so the resort is actually 4 different areas, and Margaritaville Resort consists of the hotel and the cottages there. It's 186 room with convention space, ballrooms, meeting rooms as well. They've got a great restaurant up at Euphoria. They've got 3 pools at the property there that are together. Then there's a whole set of cottages that are part of the Margaritaville brand, and some of those have pools too, by the way. But they all get to have access to the hotel pools through the Fins Up Club, and really it's a wonderful facility. Then there's the other component is the promenade at Sunset Walk. Sunset Walk is sort of the umbrella for the whole area. And so at the promenade, you've got Ford's Garage and Yeoman's and BurgerFi. They just opened the Wharf and Lizzie's, which are part of the old BB King barbecue chain, and different components there where they've got live music every day. The Estefans opened Estefan's Kitchen. So that whole area is designed for food retail services. There's a nail salon. There's a shop for pets, so you don't forget your dog. And by the way, this is a very pet friendly area between the hotel and all the restaurants in the area. There's a Rock and Brews. There's a Studio Movie Grill. So all of those components are the restaurant entertainment component to the area. And really, currently, that's the 4 properties that make up the resort area here in Kissimmee.
And do those guests get to use your facility for free, or do they have to pay to use it, or how do that?
Actually, the guests do not. We are an independent entity. They do have. They've got 2 or 3 really nice pools there, but that through their concierge desk, they can get a discounted ticket. And we work with a lot of concierges. Orlando has probably more than anywhere except for New York City and Las Vegas.
Definitely, yeah. So maybe you could just tell us about your ticket and season pass prices. What were they in 2020 and how are they going to change in 2021?
So ticket price last year was $49.99 for a one-day ticket, general admission. This year it's $59.99. Season passes, we started off at $59.99 last year. We started off at $59.99 this year. And then we're now at $69.99. So it's $10 more than the price of a one-day ticket at this point, and that'll extend out for a bit. So yeah, that's the normal ticket model for a seasonal property. And we in this market though, we are the value proposition, and we think that we're here for the locals as well as being here for the tourists and resort. And our numbers back that up. I think ultimately we'll see probably 65% are from more than 60 miles away. But under the pandemic, currently it's inverted.
And so you really are encouraging people to get a season pass then if it's only $10 more. I guess it's too early to tell if that is the case, or because last year maybe you weren't selling so many season passes.
Well, I have to tell you, last year we did a couple things. Like lots of properties, we extended out our annual pass holder use that we didn't. If they bought it in 19, we didn't make them rebuy in 20.
Oh, okay.
So there were some things that were strange. We had a really good year on season passes last year. And we're pacing ahead of sales from last year at this point. So I feel pretty good about the process, and I think the price points are the right price points. We want people to come out and have a great day, make the memories with the family, and be that place where everybody goes, "Gosh, I want to go back."
That's great. Well, let's just talk about capacity. So, in 2020, were there any days when you guys got to capacity and had to, cut people off because of the local governmental rules and social distancing? And how are you expecting to manage that in 2021?
Well, there's a couple of different things. When you take a look at what the governor has to say, then you take a look at what the CDC has to say, and what the local administrators and what the Department of Health, there's a myriad of regulations. And so last year we closed the park to the public, didn't allow any more access for limited windows on 6 occasions. We brushed against that number on 10 other occasions that were close enough for us to begin to put those closures in place. This year, we're still looking at the CDC guidelines haven't changed much. They recommend social distancing, and they're going to continue to recommend social distancing. So that's really kind of the bellwether that I think we're using for the moment. And so we will continue with social distancing at this property. And I think that you'll find that's true at almost every property in the country. One of the things that we are changing for this year, last year we highly recommended that you wear your face mask in the ticket line, in food lines, in restrooms. While we recommend that in food lines and restrooms, you must wear your mask before you get into the park. After you're into the park, you can't, wet masks don't work. Right. So that's one that we certainly don't require them going down the slides. You don't really have a place to put them to keep them dry. So that's one. Being an outside environment, you can talk about dispersion and all those things. So outside, but when you get to a window at the entrance to the park or at the turnstile, you will need to have a mask on.
Okay. So maybe just a broader industry question. How do you think the pandemic is going to affect water parks in general in the United States and other countries? Do you see it? Do you think water parks are going to have a decline in attendance because of it, or will there be a lot of pent-up demand after it's finished?
My personal opinion is I think there's pent up demand, but I also think that water parks are a unique environment. Every bit of our water is chlorinated, and we have to maintain certain levels by statute. Uh, all of that is monitored through computers, and we also manually test the water ourselves to make sure that we're staying in our chemical requirements. We also at this property treat our water with ultraviolet. So UV lights are our standard operating process. As the water is turned over within the standard, it's being treated under UV, and we know UV is a great way of disinfecting for certain things like coronaviruses. So that's one, and I think you'll see that in and of itself makes it a safer environment. It's outside. There are very few places in a water park that you have to go inside where others are. Restrooms, absolutely. And that's why we highly recommend that you wear masks in restrooms. We limit the capacity. We shut down every other stall and every other sink in them to limit capacities going in. We limit the number of people that are in our retail store. We do not process our season pass holders inside the guest services building anymore. We do that through a window on the outside. So there's lots of changes, but as an industry, there is room for growth in that. It's a safe place to bring your family, and it's outside. It's as active as you want to be at. One of the things that I tell people is you can have fun your way at a water park. Fun for me is oftentimes just jumping on a tube and floating the lazy river for 2 hours. That's a kick in the pants.
Right.
At this property, we also have an adult only pool area. So you can go to an adult only pool. Or you can go down the name of our drop slide is drop down. When the bottom falls out, you go straight down a speed slide. You want thrill, there it is for you. We've got 2 large boomerangos, one of which, before you get to the boomerango, you're going up a Master Blaster water coaster. So we have thrills for whatever your degree of thrill level is, and that works for a family. Right. And that works for multi-generational families that you see in resort areas like the Orlando Kissimmee area.
And then the final question involves the minimum wage. So there's talk of raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. I know Florida recently passed an increase in the minimum wage, but how do you see the minimum wage affecting your property and water parks in general?
Well, and as you said, in Florida, we already have a plan that we're going to $15 an hour, and we know it. We know when that's going to occur. Haven't seen any of the details on a federal plan, but the state of Florida is already there. So there's no choice. We have to do that. Right. So that's one that you just have to build it in. Is it going to affect pricing? Probably. People who invest money in businesses have to make a certain margin, otherwise it's not profitable. So at the same time, what that impact is, I haven't done a whole lot of study to see what the gauge on that is. We just know it's coming, and as we get into our budgets for the next year, we also know that there's going to be a certain percentage increase from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, and it's a 4-year plan with escalating at the end of that in relationship to GNP and inflation. I haven't quite figured out the standards they're going to use to dictate what those are, but they're codified. That's going to happen here in Florida. So it's I hate to say it, but we're just going to have to deal with it, and yet we're still going to have to have increases in our to make sure that our margins are the same. But there's a multitude of ways to getting there. Put more people in the park. As the pandemic goes away, we'll have the opportunity to put more and more people in the park, extend our season out to instead of operating for 180 days. Is it a 230 or 240 day season? So every area is going to be different. And what we do here in Florida may be radically different than what they do in Washington State.
Well, of course, Washington has some minimum wage increases as well. It's like a place like Alabama or Mississippi where the minimum wage is still the federal level. That could be very different from yours if they don't pass the federal change. So we'll see on that. Well, Jim, it's been so kind of you to take the time to do our interview, and I'm going to sign off on the recording here and just